We are well over a month into this war that the United States and Israel launched illegally and unjustly against Iran. It has resulted in over 2,000 deaths of Iranian citizens and military personnel, the majority of whom have been citizens. Israel is also suffering casualties, and the United States has lost at least 13 service members. Domestically for the United States, particularly for the Trump administration, they are suffering as the polls are vehemently against this unjust act of aggression. And the United States population is currently reeling from higher prices on pretty much everything from the results of Trump's economic policies, and now even gasoline and other commodities that are used every single day here in the United States have started to rise and rise and rise with no end in sight. Uh, Prices of oil have gone up drastically. Today is March 31st, and it is about $101 at the average for the price of oil right now. Still like around 80% of a rise since Iran has closed off the Strait of Hormuz to the United States and its allies who are conducting this war. It should be noted the Strait of Hormuz is not closed. Iran is allowing its friends who are not attacking it to get through without suffering attacks or aggression, such as China has been able to get through no problem. And Iran has made it very clear that they will accept Chinese currency for any payment to get through the Strait of Hormuz, and have pretty much told the United States that it's going to remain closed. Donald Trump last weekend announced that Iran had 2 days to cut a deal, or the Trump administration would allow the army to start attacking infrastructure, more power infrastructure, energy infrastructure more concurrently. Then on Monday of last week, Trump immediately moved it to 5 days. And then at the end of that 5 days, he moved it to 10 full days. So I believe that's going to be at the end of this week. April 3rd, I think, will be that date. And we'll see if it gets moved again. But basically, what we are seeing right now, and I'm not a military analyst, so I'm not going to talk very much about anything military wise. I'm roughly a political science guy and just a person who's well read and informed on this stuff, I would say. But what we're seeing is the United States and Israel have changed their objectives in this military conflict. It has gone from regime change to what the United States originally could have negotiated, which is banning the Iranian government from procuring a nuclear weapon, which, because of this attack, the polls of Iranian citizenship and in the Iranian government, particularly the Iranian parliament, there's a big push for Iranians to get a nuclear weapon now because you would not have seen this unwarranted act of aggression had Iran actually had a nuclear weapon. For Israel, since they have been fighting on multiple fronts since October 7th, 2023, we are seeing a lot of issues. For instance, the population, while they are in support of Israel doing these active aggressions, particularly during their attacks on southern Lebanon and maybe even a full-scale invasion of South Lebanon, they are also exhausted. The military is exhausted. There's been major pushes to encourage more reservists to be called in and to force a conscription of individuals who have religious reasons for not joining the military, uh, as well as a lot of other things. It's just you can't be at war for 3 years and really be at war for almost the entirety of your time as a nation and not eventually get exhausted of this. And as Noam Chomsky once said, Israel had a choice between security or expansion. Israel could have accepted the two-state solution alongside UN Resolution 242 borders and said the Palestinians can have roughly 23% of historic Palestine, and that agreement would have more than likely been okay. There probably would have been some infighting and some conflict, but it wouldn't be anything to what we're seeing now. Instead of Israel continues to want to expand, and to what a lot of scholars call their goal of the Greater Israel Project of controlling the majority of the Middle East. And a lot of Americans, a lot of Christian Zionists, as we saw recently, Mike Huckabee, Lindsey Graham is also one of them, is totally fine with Israel's expansionism and wanting to control and have complete hegemony of the Middle East and be the major superpower. The problem there is eventually your population is going to get worn out and tired from fighting all the time. Back to the Iranian conflict, particularly with the United States and Israel were already there was already signs that they had different goals in this. Israel wants the Iranian regime completely toppled, so chaos in the region can ensue, and the last major opposition to Israel and its policy towards the Palestinians and its expansionism would be gone. The Trump administration just wanted a more favorable regime to negotiate with, which, once again, going back, the Iranians, particularly the Iranian government, were negotiating. We know that from Oman, who there has not been anyone, I think, outside of the Trump administration, there's not been one neutral actor who has said that Oman has been lying, that they were close to peace, that Iran had made major concessions, even better than what Obama got back in 2015. So now we have reached a point where there is no real end in sight. There's no off ramps. There are rumors that the special forces will begin operating within Iran, particularly in Karg Island, and trying to take over certain spots or do raids and control certain resources. I think Karg Island has like 90% of the exported oil for Iran. The only problem is, and once again, I'm not a military analyst, this is just from what I've read from military analysts and other people who have knowledge of this region, is you can't really just rush in and take an island. You also have to hold it. And from what everybody is saying so far, it would leave the special forces as sitting ducks. And it's a really bad idea. But the unfortunate thing is the off ramps are really non-existent at this point. Iran made it clear that the only way it wants to accept any terms would be if the United States and Israel, through the United Nations or another neutral party, agree to never attack Iran again. They pay reparations for all the damages that they've done, and they have agreements with their own government that a recognition of their government, a recognition of the Iranian government as it is, and make it legitimate. You know, kind of like that thing of do you that old saying that's been going on since I'd say like 1948, where you hear over and over again, like, do you agree that Israel has the right to exist as a Jewish state? Well, do you agree that Iran has the right to exist as an Islamist republic? And you could go back and forth on that, on what you actually believe. Personally, my agreement on both issues would be I think any state should represent its people equally and entirely, something Iran has not done in the past, something Israel does not do in the past, especially now since Israel just passed a law where Palestinians can be executed. No Jewish Israeli citizen can, but if you're a Palestinian, you can face the death penalty in Israel. Uh, so yeah, so this war with Iran is very quickly getting out of control. There is tons of problems with this. A global catastrophe economically is almost certain to happen within the next 6 months as a result. There was already economic uncertainty because of the Trump administration's policies, as well as just the fact that capitalism is a system of crises. It just is how it works. We act like it's normal and natural, but the reality is it's not. No system really should have crises as often as capitalism does. And this war is going to more than likely usher in the next era. Even if we were to reach a ceasefire by the end of this week, which I truly believe, if you were to ask me, I think we will have some sort of ceasefire or negotiations within the next 2 weeks that will result in the end of this conflict. I think that's why Israel has been so aggressive in South Lebanon again, is because the United States and Israel kind of said, okay, this is too costly for us, both domestically, politically, and also for the global economy. And our allies are already really angry at us. We have to reel this in and figure something else out. But Israel still wants to pursue its expansionism, so they're going to go ahead and go into South Lebanon. Whether it actually happens or not, we'll see. Either way, the expense of the global economy will still be a shockwave. It could recover a little bit, but the remnants of this will still be there. Mainly, I think what I really get upset about is when we talk about this, as I just talked about it for the last 5 minutes or so, as a policy or economic crisis, when really 2,000 people in Iran are died, like 20 to 30 Israelis have been killed, 13 to 15 American soldiers have been killed. That's just too much death that did not need to happen. None of this needed to happen. Iran was negotiating in good faith for the second time, and for the second time they were attacked unwarranted and unjustly. And now, more than likely, Iran is going to have a big push to get a nuclear weapon so they can defend themselves from this sort of aggression again. And who knows what the look of the global landscape will be after that. People shouldn't have to die just because we have disagreements with policy or a regime. We should embolden people to do what they want to do. For instance, at the beginning of this year, had the protesters been supported worldwide by just saying, hey, yeah, support, like, fight for reforms within your government, fight for change within your government, the same way that I and others here fight for change in our government, then absolutely. But the fact that Israel was had its Mossad agents in Iran, they have admitted to this. Look at Mike Pompeo's statements, look at Israeli official statements on their TV, which endangered peaceful protesters and killed, I think, that in hundreds of Iranian security forces. Then you muddy it up and it becomes not a clear, actual, perfect thing of these protesters are wanting good faith. It's the same thing that we've seen in Cuba, which is a good transition because Cuba has a long history of having to crack down on protesters and arrest activists because you can't know if these people are in good faith because of the aggression from the United States for the last 60 years, almost 70 years. And now Cuba is entering a massive crisis because of a US blockade on all oil going there. So they are not able to get energy. They're facing massive blackouts. Hospitals are facing uh, crises of major proportion. And it doesn't need to be this way. It just doesn't. Because it's not in Cuba and Iran, it's not about the regime. It's not about the Iranians having an Islamic regime that is aggressive toward its own people and repressive at the same time. And it's not about Cubans being socialist or communist, as some people say. It's not about that. It's about having control over these people and control of their resources. Cuba's problem was that they overthrew the United States-backed government in 1959. Iran's problem is that they overthrew the United States-backed Shah in 1979. And they wanted to take control of their own resources. They wanted to have autonomy over their lives. And now we're facing the consequences of that. And that is really the major issue with this conflict in Iran is that it's not for the people of Iran. It's for the US to control its resources. And Cuba, it's the same way. It's so they can go back to being in control of the people of these regions. It's been the same way it was the same way in Chile, Panama, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and so many others. Venezuela being another recent one. Trump even put it plainly with the Venezuela stuff that this is just because we want to have control of their oil. And it doesn't have to be this way. There doesn't need to be so much death and destruction just so we can have control of other people's resources. Trade agreements exist, negotiations exist, and they work out way better than going in and destabilizing a region, killing thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, in some cases, a million people, just so that you can take over the region and have your influence on it. The first link in the description, as always, will be a link to donate to Heal Palestine. So you can donate to help Palestinians as they continue to go through genocidal conditions. And the second one will be to a Substack article I recently wrote on how Cuba is not a failed socialist state, but a state that is just another victim of American imperialism. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate it a lot, and I will see you next time.